Hey, how's it going, everybody? Mike Weber here, your real estate broker in Los Angeles. I'm here with your real estate market update for the very beginning of May 2020. So, wow, we have a lot going on in the real estate market. It has been a crazy month since my last market update video. And today I want to just kind of do a general state of the market episode. And really, I mean, there's just tremendous uncertainty out in the market right now across the board. Obviously, with all the economic chaos going on, one would assume that the pressures out there would be pushing the market downwards in the short run, for sure, in terms of prices. However, there's a lot of things that are going on that may prevent that, at least in the short run. Such as government intervention, the Federal Reserve, intervening, getting into the mortgage bond market, buying up all kinds of, bad mortgage debt, essentially any mortgage debt they can get their hands on in terms of mortgage-backed securities, essentially backstopping all of these debt holders and these lending institutions, which is allowing them to just go back out into the market and create more loans, at these extremely or historically low interest rates. So there's also talk about creating artificial demand and or restricting the supply of homes on the market at the government level in all kinds of different ways. The government has obviously already forced lenders to offer forbearance options at different lengths, up to a year in some cases for government-backed loans. So certainly this is going to slow down any sort of negative effects that we would, expect to see in the housing market in terms of prices falling or supply of inventory rising. So although it would seem clear that we'd see kind of these major driving factors towards, prices coming down and inventory skyrocketing, at least for now, we're not seeing that for the most part, except for in the highest priced markets. So let's go ahead and dive a little deeper. We'll talk about both how supply and demand are currently being affected and what that's ultimately doing to prices, and then how that might impact prices as we continue to move forward. And then after that, we'll actually take a look at the local charts for Los Angeles County and then for the South Bay Beach cities to see what's actually showing up in the data over the last couple months. So first, I'll talk about buyer demand issues. And obviously, we've had, the biggest job losses, in the history of the country. Over 30 million new unemployment claims have come out just in the last month or so. So clearly unprecedented job losses. Certainly that would have to have a huge negative effect on housing demand, on people's ability to pay their current mortgages, their rent on their, rental properties, so on and so forth. A recent study just published said that 1 out of 5 buyers who qualified to buy a home last year would not qualify this year. And we're really just kind of getting started on seeing how all of this is going to play out as lenders contract their supply of credit into the market. In fact, a lot of lenders have upped their standards. Some are not even doing loans with less than 20% down and credit scores above 700. These are some major lenders that are starting to do this. And then a lot of lenders aren't even doing jumbo loans or other high-risk loans that were very easy to get, just 6 months ago or beyond. Those are some of the buyer issues that I'm seeing out there that are ultimately going to affect demand. And the real question is the demand side effect going to be bigger in the short run, in the midterm, and in the long run than the supply side effects? And so, certainly if demand falls more than supply rises, prices have to come down and vice versa. If we look at the seller supply side issues, there's really a lot of things that are restricting the supply significantly right now, which I'll show you on the charts as we move forward. But mainly, one of the biggest things is that so far, sellers have been very afraid to put their property on the market. They've been holding back on taking any action, rightfully so, concerns about COVID, about having people come through their home, etc. So we've seen a huge drop in the number of homes on the market, the number of sales taking place. Definitely for this time of year where it should be getting really busy, things have slowed down. And so that is likely going to be just a short-term thing. Likely when the economy opens up, when they give us the green light here in the near future, to kind of get back to some semblance of business, probably we're going to see a huge uptick in these sellers that do want to get their home on the market, cash out some of this equity and get out before things worsen. And secondarily, the government has come in and mandated that lenders offer forbearance programs, in some cases as long as a year, in other cases as short as 3 months. But of course, this is just going to kick the can down the road, and these could get extended at any time. So we could end up a year from now and have the government come in and force lenders to do another year, right? So we really don't know how long a lot of this stuff is going to look like this, and what that's going to do in terms of restricting supply. Next, we have whispers and kind of talks of the Fed backstopping bondholders to make them whole while owners don't make their payments in the short run or maybe the mid run. I mean, we really don't know. So clearly, if somehow the people that own this debt are being made whole by the government or the Federal Reserve, then their incentive to get rid of the people that are no longer making their mortgage payments is going to be significantly reduced, which could draw out a lot of supply that would otherwise be coming on the market as lenders foreclose on people that are not making their mortgage payments. There's also a lot of new bills that have been being proposed and talked about. I mean, pretty crazy stuff, rent holidays and, no mortgage payments for a year after the pandemic ends. I mean, all kinds of extreme stuff, that really just flies in the face of, contract law and things that have really been kind of a mainstay of a free country with free markets, really since the beginning of the nation. And this stuff might pass, right? So I think there's a lot of unintended consequences with a lot of this legislation that these politicians dream up and pass, very, very quickly, bills that are 1,000 pages long that nobody reads before they vote on them, that have, massive unintended consequences on, people that own property, people that rent property, so on and so forth, as well as huge moral hazards. So, you come out and say, people don't have to pay their rent and they can collect, a lot more unemployment that they would have been able to collect from working. And all of a sudden you get a lot of people that don't want to work, that want free rent, and problems just compound from there. We don't know what's going to happen with a lot of this stuff. And clearly it could have a very serious effect and impact on what we're seeing in the housing market. Final thing that will likely happen and certainly happened in the 2008 financial crisis was a lot of large institutions came in with dirt cheap money from the Federal Reserve or from the government or that they're able to borrow in the debt markets, and they buy up the supply of housing, hundreds of thousands of homes, especially if prices start coming down at much lower rates than you or I could get to buy these homes. So essentially we're competing with these institutions that are able to borrow money much less expensively than we are, which allows them to be profitable at higher prices than we could, with the current, property taxes, etc. And so we could see that happen again, but at a much higher scale, even an order of magnitude higher, where all of a sudden the supply is getting, zapped up by these financial institutions that are ultimately getting access to this money very inexpensively. So although it seems clear that with all the economic, trouble that we're seeing on the horizon, the job losses, companies going out of business, all this terrible stuff that's happening right now, we would think, oh, prices are going to have to come down. And, it's really not that simple. I think that the government, the Federal Reserve, they're going to do everything in their power to try to prevent that from happening. So it is yet to be seen kind of what's going to happen, how quickly it's going to happen, and how all of this stuff is going to play out. But so let's jump into the data and actually look at what's happened over the last couple months. And that'll give you guys kind of a feel for what's going on currently. So we'll start out here in Los Angeles County as a whole. And we see prices are up modestly, about 4%. And it seems like business as usual. Prices are still rising. But what we'll see here when we move on to the next screen is that really the reason that is happening is because there's almost no sales taking place and there's almost no inventory on the market. So the few houses that are selling, they have sold for just slightly above, where we were last year at the same end of month. Now, if we look here, we look at the supply of inventory. Here's where you can see, we are absolutely just at, the floor in terms of inventory, especially for this time of year. So, last year, we were way up here, 3.5 months supply, whatever it is. And now we're at 2.5 months for this time of year. So extremely low inventory. And then the next slide really kind of shows you how different things are in the current environment than they have been in any year in recent history. So we're down 38% year over year in terms of closed sales. And when you look at the graph, I mean, it's totally scary. It looks like we're headed into the winter time, into the end of the year. But that's not the case at all. As you see, every year, during the holidays, we, get really low here on closed sales. And then immediately we start spiking up every single year. Well, look what's happening this year. We came out of the holidays. We kind of had that initial spike in March. Economy got closed down and closed sales fell off a cliff. So this is why we're down 38% in closed sales, that the sales that are closing, the really nice homes that come on the market, they are still getting bid up, especially if they're lower price homes, sub 600,000. That market is still clearing pretty well. But a lot of inventory at the higher end of the market is really just sitting right now. Now, if we look at the South Bay, we see prices are actually down modestly 5.5% year over year. So definitely a decline there. Kind of see a flattening out so far. And that's, again, with very limited activity, very limited homes on the market. So certainly not a sign of strength by any measure. But of course, it's going to take a little longer to see, if that supply really starts growing and there's not enough demand to buy up the homes, which would certainly push prices down. If we look at supply, we're down 21% year over year. Same story as we're seeing in Los Angeles, extremely low supply. But again, as we move to the next graph, closed sales, that's where we see, massive drop in the number of sales that are taking place, almost down 40% year over year. Again, you look at last year, we went very, very quickly coming out of December, January. We jumped up into the 400, 450 range for closed sales, and here we are in April, kind of peak selling season, beginning of peak selling season at about half of that closed sale volume. So very, very little closed sales. So yeah, if this information is useful, go ahead and click the thumbs up. Definitely become a subscriber. Keep an eye out for my other videos that I've been doing or my other podcasts about some of the stuff that's happening in the economy. If you need help with anything real estate related, anywhere in the Los Angeles area, the South Bay, just give me a call. I'm certainly here to help. Wish you guys all well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks so much for watching. Take care.